as introductions go, um, this isn't an easy thing for me to do. Never done anything like this before, so bear with me. I'm just starting a journey um, that's taking me somewhere. I don't know where it's taking me. So I've set up this YouTube channel to document said journey and the tools that I'll be using to hopefully find a life that's worth living. An introduction usually starts from the beginning. I'll try to keep it short, but I think it's important that anybody watching this knows who's making the videos. Greater identification always helps, I feel. I was born in '73, um, youngest child, family of three, single parent. But from being very young, I was full of fear. Um, and if you look at the definition of fear, um, it's afraid of anything that might happen, anything that could cause pain or suffering. And I lived a life that was pretty much controlled by the emotions which tie into that. So as a child, I was always scared of what people would think of me, what might happen next, what had happened yesterday, what might happen tomorrow. I carried that with me into being a teenager through my school years, and then as a teenager, I found that drugs really were a great healer. And they began a journey that took me on a wild ride of a variety of different substances. In that time, I'm married and I had children, um, and I found that in the end, heroin was the greatest healer for my brain. I always had an emotional instability and an emotional imbalance, which meant that I couldn't deal with circumstances that most ordinary people, my friends and the people around me, were dealing with on a day-to-day basis, working, looking after family, responsibilities, managing money. All those things terrified me. And I'd created an alter ego, which was the life and soul of the party, who wasn't afraid of anything, and but was crippled inside every day with fear, anxiety, stress, loneliness, resentment, um, and it controlled every part of my life. I progressed through my 20s, and my addiction, it's all about chemical imbalance in the brain. So the illness of stress, anxiety, depression, fear, all these fear-based illnesses, um, as they became stronger, my drug addiction became stronger in order to try and medicate what was going on. And I hit my 30s, and the roundabout of stress, anxiety, fear, self-medicating with drugs had reached a peak, reached a climax, and my body physically and my brain mentally couldn't do it anymore. And in my early 30s, I quit the drugs, quit the alcohol, and for a time found a new way to live a life. It was quite a spiritual way of life. It felt like I'd been given a gift from something, a power, somewhere. Um, but as usual, the person that I am, I quickly, within a few years, I was slipping back into the patterns of before because I hadn't taught myself new patterns. Um, by my early 40s, the pain was getting bad again. I was looking at a way out. Drugs and alcohol certainly seemed a good way to go. I'd remarried, I'd had another child. I was still struggling with all the same fears. I was still struggling with finances. By this time I was working, I had a little business of my own. Couldn't manage it. Very good at the work, couldn't manage the day-to-day running, couldn't manage the finances, couldn't manage the stress and anxiety that came along with that way of life. Um, and in an attempt to break the cycle, I packed up and moved myself and my family. We moved to Spain, and at the moment that's where we are. It didn't work, unfortunately, and because you can't move away, you can't run away from those inner demons. And I was never going to run away from them because I wasn't doing anything to change them, and the things that I was doing to change it, really, I wasn't doing the right things. My brain had become accustomed to a pattern of thinking and feeling, much like my addiction to drugs, which meant that it was craving the imbalance of feelings which produce chemicals which I had become accustomed to. So negative thoughts would produce an outpouring of this chemical reaction in my brain, which, although very negative and harming, um, my body was accustomed to it. And as such, the progression gradually got worse to the point where I started drinking again. And over the last 12 months, I've suffered two emotional breakdowns, huge burnout, what they call seemingly burnout syndrome, um, to the point where at the end of the last one, I quit my job, gave up my business, stopped working with clients, and I turned into a bit of a recluse in my own home. But at that moment, something changed. It was as if some great energy in its infinite wisdom removed something. Um, I I began to wake up in the morning feeling quite empty, and the fears and the stresses and the anxieties about money and about family and about work and a multitude of other things that gone, that they'd ended. And upon reading things, it would appear that my brain had reached a point where it could no longer function in that state, and as such, shut everything off. Now, I'm doing lots of reading at the moment, and this will come into my future videos about what I'm reading and things that I'm learning and things that I'm experiencing. But just for now, an introduction to me. About 4 weeks ago, I decided that I was going to take up yoga. Started meditating, which I'd had a bit of experience before in my life, and then just recently I thought, why not document it? Why not share it with the world? If one thing that I can do for me and for somebody else, if one little thing changes one other person's life, then it's going to be for the better. Hence the introduction. Um, Positive Yoga with Rob is the title of my YouTube channel. It's not just going to be yoga. I just needed a title for my email. That's pretty as much as far as it went. And that was the one that wasn't taken. I'm going to introduce the basic meditations that I'm doing and different types of meditations that are available for people that are just learning. I'm going to introduce the types of music and the ranging frequencies of music that can be used in meditation. I'm learning all about my chakras and the balance and beginners yoga techniques. I'll be incorporating that into these videos. This was just the first video to introduce myself, to introduce my past, and to introduce the amazing person that you see before me, who is going to transcend onto this spiritual plane of existence if I continue on this journey. So I'm told. You'll hear lots of words in these videos like apparently and possibly and maybe. Apparently this will work. And maybe I'm heading in the right direction. These are all things you'll hear. But I've got to be honest, in the few weeks that I've been practicing yoga and that I've got back into meditation again, I can feel a difference. I can feel a positivity, a difference in my internal energy. It's different. It feels different, and this is what I want to share. And hopefully, the continuation of this will be a sight to behold in the future. So thanks if you took the time to watch it. Thanks. I'll be releasing more videos, doing more videos, and as I get further along in my practice and I get further along in learning, I'll pass those things on to you. This is real beginner stuff. I'm not a yoga teacher. I'm certainly not a spiritual guru. I am just a guy who wants to document how I was feeling and compare with how I am feeling now, and how that could transcend to brilliance, amazingness. I mean, one of the greatest films and quotes I've ever seen for spirituality, and I'll end on this, is Kung Fu Panda. Don't laugh, Kung Fu Panda. And Master Oogway has an amazing spiritual message for Po. And he says, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery. Today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. What can you say to that?